Okay, let me go live quickly.
Do we need to go live?
Yeah, otherwise it doesn't record.
Ah,
Okay, so now I should be able to private chat. I should be able to see the general chat. Okay. So if you do it in the big chat, the group chat, not in the private chat. I will send you the link of the previous recording also for the bit that you've missed. Yeah. So that was the group on Monday night. Okay. So that being said, let's kick off and talk a little bit about, from a strategic perspective, what do we do in ADapT? The first step in the 9-step process is really to make sure that there is a directional focus in the organization. We purposefully try to avoid talking about things like mission and vision and all kinds of stuff like that, because first of all, there's lots of information out there about it. And number two is, I in any case find that most organizations actually don't properly use all of that stuff. So let's choose something extremely simple and meaningful, and saying that you have to have a purpose in an organization, because that will be your guiding light. The second thing that we've decided to do in ADapT is that we won't belabor the point if there are already good guidance out there. So if you say to me, so what can I help to better understand and define my purpose as an organization, I would say to you, start with why. Because if you understand your why, then it will be much easier for you to make decisions, because everything that you do, you can then say, okay, if I'm doing this, is it aligned with my why? Does it help me to fulfill my purpose? And to that end, I would recommend that you actually go and buy this book. He said, you may say that I've got the red book that said start with why. The difference between this book and the red book is this is a practical guide that you can use with teams to help discover and define purpose. Yeah. So it's a workbook. Brilliant book. Absolutely awesome. Okay. That completes the first step. Well, don't think it's going to be that easy for all of the others. It's just that I think Simon Sinek did a brilliant job, and let's leave that at that. Yeah, so the reason why I've got a picture of ice cream here is there's a little saying that that goes, if you want to please everyone, sell ice cream. But lately I've actually realized that not even that is true, because there may be vegans in the room. Somebody may be lactose intolerant. Apologies.
I feel like an ice cream now.
Okay, so how do we know what customers need? I suppose that the easiest answer would be to ask customers, but then again, they don't know quite often. Henry Ford said, if I wanted to know what people, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. So this is actually quite a bit of a conundrum, because we need to find a mechanism here to get meaningful feedback in terms of customers' genuine needs. Otherwise, if we use the wrong triggers as the start of our innovation process, we're going to do the wrong things. We're going to do a bunch of things that doesn't matter. And that is not a good idea. Now, let me just start by saying we propose that when you look at this whole thing of product and service, and incidentally, when I use the word product, I mean it in the old traditional sense. In the 1970s, 80s, we used to talk about products, and products consisted of goods and services. And then somewhere in the 80s, products didn't become products anymore. They came services and products, and goods disappeared. And yeah, so just know when I use the word product, I mean everything. Yeah. So you could try and understand it from a market perspective. You can try and understand it from a product perspective, or you can try and understand it from the customer's perspective. And we chose the customer's perspective. That being said, though, to understand the customer's perspective, you do need to have a view of the market and your the competitive product space also. So there is a little bit of analysis that will be done in step 2 that will touch on market analysis, and that would touch on competitive product analysis. But the core of the conversation is on customers, the buyers. Yeah. So a market is considered to be all of the customers and the people who competes against you within a specific category of something. Yeah, whether that's a product, a good, a service, or whatever. Yeah, so there is some level of competition around that. And clearly, you need to have a view of that. You need to understand what is your position within that market. Yeah, what is your competitor's position within that market? What is the product? Yeah, how did you group a bunch of things into a category, a service or a product category, to try and make sense of it? Apologies for my coughing. Last week, this time, I was in bed. Okay, so we do need a little bit of understanding of products and services and markets, but you'll see a little bit later, we're going to zoom into really the issue of and trying to understand why somebody would want to buy a product, number one. And that why, the customer's why, is actually not about the product at all, or even about the market that they compete in, or that you and your competitors are in trying to offer them services. Now, the reason why we do customer focused and not product or market focused is wherever your attention goes, that is where you will focus, and that is where your answer is going to come from. So think about it. If you use a market focus, for instance, the market to a large extent focuses on this category of products that you and your competitors are trying to sell to customers. Yes, you're trying to sell it to a customer, but that's not about customer understanding, is it? So if you want to do something meaningful in life, you have to ask yourself, what can I do for my customer to get them to achieve their objectives? I like this statement from Peter Drucker, as opposed to the Chicago School of Economics people who used to say the purpose of a business is to make money. No, it's not. The purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. Okay. So that is a little bit of background of why we're going to touch on some of these things. From a product perspective, we are going to draw on some foundational work from Everett Rogers and then later Jeffrey Moore, because we need to understand product positioning. And the reason why we need to understand it is because your innovation response would be different depending on where products is within the natural life cycle of a product. Rogers called that life cycle the diffusion of innovation. So you'll see some familiar stuff as we go through the slides. Okay, there you go, on the very next slide. So, Moore was the first one to recognize that people who buy new and innovative products are not the same people who's buying products that's gaining popularity. They're also not the same customers that typically buy something when a product has reached maturity and now are in a state of decline. And because the type of people that's involved in each one of these stages are different, your innovation response needs to be different. So this is the sort of the first insight based on the foundational theory from Rogers and Moore, is that there's actually 5 innovation responses that you can have when trying to come up with something cool for your customer. Type 1 innovation is you coming up with something completely unique. Nobody's ever thought about it. It's completely left field, brought into vision. Everybody loves it. Chances that you're going to get that right, very slim. Chances that you're going to be wrong, very good. Type 2 innovation is what Clayton Christensen would have called disruptive innovation. Now, unfortunately, there's lots of people running around saying, we're going to disrupt the market, and we're going to use technology to do that, but they didn't actually understand what disruptive innovation is. So disruptive innovation is there's a product already out there. That product tends to be expensive and complicated. It also tends to be multifaceted. But there's people outside of that market who would want to use some of the features of that product, and they outside of that market typically because they can't afford that product. It's too sophisticated, too expensive, too complex. They just want to use some of the utility of that product. If you go and build something for those people, what you're then going to do is you're going to disrupt the main market. Customers typically that's sitting in the green side of the fence. And that is disruptive innovation. If you understand that and you leverage technology to do that, then you can be very disruptive and you can be very successful. Okay. So type 2 innovation, in terms of left field, non-mainstream product innovation, is actually the area where you can be very successful and very profitable. Now, if you change this picture slightly, and there was a gap between the blue and the green, as we would have talked about the chasm. The reason why it doesn't help somebody who's a techie funny, who loves the innovative stuff that you do, even if they're a large organization, as a customer to help you grow your business. And the reason then for the chasm is that the people on the other side of the fence, that green side of the fence, mainstream adoption, don't believe the propeller heads. They think they are a bunch of chance takers. Yeah, they see them as cowboys. So if you want to actually have a mainstream product with long-term longevity and potential to grow in the market, you need to try and find a customer on the green side of the fence. The easiest way to do that is to go and find somebody who's buying an existing product, but that product wasn't designed for them. They are willing to spend a lot of money on a product and only use 5 or 10% of its capability, because it helps them do something that nothing else can help them do. And if you've identified what that nothing else is that anything else can do, and you focus on that and you build a product around that, Moore calls them pragmatists in pain. So the people in the green part, Moore calls pragmatists. You can be very successful. You'll have a very low rate of failure with these innovative ideas, and you can grow and scale this product rapidly. Okay, so that's type 3 innovation. Type 4 innovation is basically what most people with existing products that's in the market that's busy growing is doing. They add features, they make it better, they add bells and whistles, they look at what competitors are doing, they're trying to keep their competitive position. So yes, it is a type of innovation, not very innovative. It's more sort of product improvement, be that as it may. We call it type 4 innovation. And then type 5 innovation is actually not, it's not product innovation. This is where you realize you're under threat, your margins are shrinking, and the only way that you can extend the life of a product is to do it better. So once again, technology can be leveraged here. So a strategy for type 5 innovation, for instance, could be to offer something as a service. Yeah. So software as a service is a perfect business model to use for type 5 innovation. This is also the area where things like Lean and Six Sigma and so forth plays quite a big role. We're going to split these two types, the two types of the fence. So in the innovation bit, the middle bit, we're going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in the operational side, we'll talk a little bit about the type 5 innovation. So this is most probably the slide that I'm going to spend the most amount of time on, because it is fundamental to understanding how we're going to do a lot of things in ADapT. Okay. So I don't know if you recognize that my description of these different things is, I would say, jobs other people have, but they can't, or jobs customers have, or jobs we do to make. So strange language to choose. The reason for that is another set of principles that's core to the use of ADapT is this concept of jobs to be done. And it's actually very old. It started in the 1960s with Ted Levitt saying, people want holes, not drills. Yes? As a result of that statement from Levitt, Drucker then said, we need to focus to help the customer to get their job done. And then, in the late 90s, early 2000s, people started talking about jobs to be done. Just bear in mind, if you go and read literature about this, there's different views of jobs to be done. So Tony Ulrich on the one side uses a very analytical approach. Bob Muster on the other side of the fence, so that's the swing of the pendulum, uses a very marketing type of approach, a little bit fluffy. When Clayton Christensen talked about it, he was sort of closer to Muster, but not as far away from Ulrich. We found a brilliant resource to be this book from Jim Kolbach. I think he's from Spotify or from one of the unicorns. Great book. Go and buy it. Okay, so what is jobs to be done? And this is really important. So now we start focusing on the customer. So we've talked about the context, yes? A customer employs your product or service because they've got a job that they need to do. I can translate it and saying customers buy products and services because they need to reach their objectives, but I think that's too fluffy. So a customer buys a product or a service because they've got a job that they need to get done. The job that they need to get done has got nothing to do with your product or service. Your product and service is actually immaterial, And for you to better understand how you can service that customer, you shouldn't think about your product or service. You should only concentrate on their job. The interesting thing about jobs is jobs tends to be able to, you should be able to describe a job, not including the tools and technology that you use to get the job done. And if you do, you'll find an interesting thing. You will find that the description of the job over time doesn't change. It's only the tools that you use to get the job done that changes. But it's essential to have that fundamental, timeless definition of what a job is. And then you can say, okay, if that is the job that needs to be done, How can I help the customer to do that job better, faster, easier, and so forth? So that's the trigger for your innovation effort. And that's where you can go and look at how you can leverage technology to actually make a difference for a customer. But do understand the job independent of your product and service first. Very important. Now, if you help a customer to get their job done perfectly, and you understand that there's always related jobs, and you can help them to do their related jobs also perfectly, guess what? They're going to buy your product and service. Yeah. Switching cost becomes less of an issue if you can perfectly service the customer's ability to get the job done. So that's a really interesting insight. So how does it help us? Well, it gives us something to focus on. It says, okay, so that is what I need to achieve. That is the outcome that I need to achieve for my customer when I think about building or creating or innovating or a product or a service that I need to offer to my customer. Be that any one of the innovation types, something completely unique and new, or looking at my existing product and then saying, okay, this is how I make my existing product better. So that full spectrum from 1 to 4. Type 5 innovation is internally focused, so it's not really customer focused, and that's why we're going to talk about it separately. I think I've talked enough about jobs. Just bear in mind, there's a context and hierarchy. So there's at the center of understanding jobs, there's a who's doing the job. There's a what are they doing, the job. There's also a how. Now, you may have different customers that's got the same job, but their hows may be different. Be careful not to get distracted by the hows. Understand the different hows, but the important thing is actually the what. But you can't focus on the what unless you understand who's doing the job, because how are you gonna analyze it? And then based on that, you can say, okay, and why are they doing this job? And then there's a greater context also. So what you'll find is there will tend to be hierarchies of jobs also. At a very high level, something most probably that you can't describe as a job, it's more of an aspiration. And then you would, at the next level, have something that you can describe as a job, but you may find that that job consists of other jobs also. So that's why we talk about big and little jobs. And then the little job is not the steps that you take to get the job done. That's a job stage and a job step. So that's the breakdown. We've decided to actually take a little bit of the theory in jobs to be done that follows out of the syllabus. I think it's getting too detailed for foundation purposes. The important thing for you to recognize and realize is that it is really important for you to understand what are the jobs that your customers are doing, because if you don't, you cannot properly innovate. You can't come up with better products and services. So jobs tends to be described in the following fashion. So there's a verb, there's an object, and sometimes a clarifier. So in this instance, I want to visit my family on special occasions. You can see that there's no technology involved in that job statement. We don't talk about how they're going to visit. So it's about what it is that the customer is trying to do, and maybe a little bit of context, to clarify it on special occasions. Also bear in mind that when we start talking about jobs, not all jobs are done for a specific tangible No, that's also not true. Not all jobs are based on tangible outcomes that's objectively measurable. Sometimes people want to get jobs done because it makes them feel better, or it enhances their status in society. So there are things that's called social jobs and emotional jobs. Be very careful to try and shy away from deep analysis of those types of jobs, because it's extremely difficult to be successful in satisfying those type of jobs. That being said, is don't be oblivious to those jobs, because there is to a large extent, it determines the level of satisfaction with getting a job done. And then obviously, there's jobs that are related. What we will do is, once we've identified a job, you need to map a job. And here's a simple way for you to think about mapping a job, because as it turns out, there's sort of 9 typical steps that a job goes through. Job stages. And this slide we're skipping. So if you get a question around this, I'll give you the mark. We are taking this out of the syllabus. How do we map jobs? Well, we can do it in 2 ways. We can go and talk to people and observe how they do work, trying to understand it. So that would be job interviews. Or we could use a Muster technique, which is about finding somebody who's actually chosen another product to do a job with, and trying to understand why they moved from one product to another. So that's called a switch interview. Both of them are helpful. Switch interviews are easier to do, but the results that you get is less insightful. How would a typical job map look? If you can see there, the headings are the same as those 9 steps that I've showed you. In essence, what you do is, as you talk to somebody about the job that they're doing, every time that there's a task or something that they do or step that they take, you just write it down, then quickly sort it into beginning, middle, and end, and then go and put them in sequence. For those of you who are into agile planning, this would look very familiar, but we'll get back to this also a little bit later. Don't worry about the stickies or the stickers on the picture here. That's techniques that I'll teach you when you're doing the practitioner level courses. Okay, so that's what a typical job map would look like. So you can already see this is a brilliant input in terms of coming up with new ideas, isn't it? It doesn't talk about how you're going to do stuff, but at least you know the sequence. You at least know what needs to be done. You at least know what's important. You could also differentiate already at this level whether a step is essential or it is a enhancing step. Something that would just make it better.
Johan.
Yeah.
A question, please. So this is coming from my HR perspective, looking at this. Do you include interactive use of methods like Sphere to help the customer define the levels of responsibility, etc.?
Okay, this is not really about responsibility. The focus really is on what people do. It's not on what they should be doing. So this is really just having a conversation with somebody and saying, okay, so first thing in the morning, you go and do what? Okay, that.
Okay, so you're looking purely observationally on the activities and the behaviors they engage in as they're doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So this is not about job design from an HR perspective. And I think it's good that you asked that question, because that's a very, very important distinction to be drawn. This is not about you changing the way that people are doing work. This is about you understanding what people are doing.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So how do you get from jobs to products? Well, if you know what the job is that needs to be done, you can create a product or service that help people to do the job. Yeah, that's relatively simple to see that. Okay. Now we have to jump back a little bit and say, okay, so now we understand what the customer's jobs are, but let's just go back and look at what we are doing. And the easiest way to do that is to look at each one of your products and to go and create a product board for each one of those products. I know the strategy bit of this is not techie at all, but it's really important to drive the innovation effort. Yeah, because if you make mistakes here, you're going to build the wrong things. We've borrowed the idea of product boards from the product management community and modified it slightly. So product boards, from our perspective, would have 4 different views. A view of how the product delivers value to customers, a view of how the product can and will change over time or are busy changing over time. What we call the front end view, which is really talking about the competitive space in the market. And then the back end view, which really talks about the way that we deliver or create or build or manufacture the product or the service. This is what a typical product board looks like. You'll see there's different colors that we use for the different views. Do not get hung up on the names of the little blocks. This is a idea or an indication for you in terms of what type of information you should record for all of your products and services in the different views. The views are important, so the different colors are important. If you, for instance, if I look at the change view, we do a lot of, virtually all of our work is very agile based. And I've purposefully include things that I typically don't like doing, like releases, just to give you a view of, this is how you would manage the process of change of a product or a service. Customers' product boards don't look the same, and what's actually quite interesting, quite often different products within a product customer's portfolio, their boards doesn't look the same. You'll see a little bit later why the colors. Okay, so that was the second step. That's understanding what customer needs. Once you've got a view of customer needs and where you at, with your products and services, the next thing that you can then do is to try and spot the gaps and say, okay, if these are the gaps, where are we going to focus? Where can we deliver the most impactful change for our customers? And as a result, have high impact on our organization itself also. So the way to do that is to think about your product portfolio, but from an investment perspective. Remember, we said this method is iterative. So we'll choose something, work on it, go and deliver a little bit of value, and then we may make it better, or we may do something else in the next iteration. So if you use the product boards, what you can do is you can group them into categories, and then so I'm going to go to the picture. It is easier to explain. You can take each one of your products and actually go and plot it on this diffusion of innovation curve. What we tend to do, and you don't have to do it that way, is we use arrows. The size of the arrow can either indicate revenue or profitability. We've got customers using both. So each one of our products we would go and put on that curve so that we know and understand where it is. Is it something new? If it's new, we use a circle because we don't know where it's going yet. We just know that there's some traction and there's maybe some revenue. The direction of the arrow tells us about whether this is a growing product or not. So you could see that C already there. There's a level of stagnation. Yeah, we see that the volume for that product is busy declining. It's not a declining product yet, but it's leveling out. Now, this gives us a lot of insight in terms of potentially what we can do with this product. Yeah. And if you then identify opportunities in terms of jobs that's not properly satisfied for customers, you could also go and try and see which of these products can be leveraged to start addressing that opportunity. Yeah. So I would be very skeptical, though, for a product sitting at C on the curve at the moment to try and introduce a bunch of new jobs there. Because there's other reasons for this product already stagnating. So I will either look for type 1, 2, or 3 innovation opportunities for a unique new discovery in terms of a job. This picture is really important because it actually tells us three important things. The horizontal talks about whether we're talking to existing customers or new customers. Now, immediately, if it's new customers, then you know most probably you don't have a lot of experience of in terms of the jobs that they do, and you need to go and do some thorough analysis outside of your area of expertise sometimes, and also sometimes outside of the area of reach, which is difficult, but not that difficult. You can actually successfully on that side of the fence do adverts to get people to interview who's in a specific space, and give them some kind of a reward. What people typically do is a shopping voucher or whatever for an hour of their time. On so that's horizontal. On the vertical plane, it's really about, is the job that you're busy focusing on new, or is it an existing job? So if it is an existing job, most probably you know a lot about that job already. If it is a new job, then clearly you need to go and find out. Now, the cool thing is if you've identified an opportunity in the bottom half of the green space, the practice space, chances are that you know that because you've got a customer in that space. So it's really just the little blue block, the type 1 innovation, that makes it really, really difficult to find good input into your innovation approach. The other interesting thing to observe with the placement here on the life cycle is that if you try and do innovation and implement innovative ideas, that typically is type 1, 2, or 3 innovation within the constraints of your operational environment. Chances are that you're going to fail. And you're going to fail not because, okay, I'm running ahead of myself, not because it's a bad idea. You're going to fail because the immune system of the organization is going to attack the ideas. They're going to see this as foreign. And that's why at the bottom of this picture, you see that it's a really good idea to do some of the stuff in an independent innovation space. Yeah. So you need to go and create a space where you can utilize the resources of the organization, but not apply the rules of the organization. We'll get back to that a little bit later also. So if you don't budget for innovation and renewal and growth within your organization and thinking about the future, you will not have a future. So most of the organizations, when we start working with them, they say to us, but you don't understand, we've got so many operational issues. We don't have money to spend on innovation. Our response to that is that it's fine if you don't want to do that, but just bear in mind you won't have a business tomorrow. That tomorrow may be real tomorrow, or it may be a year down the line, or 6 months down the line, or 2 years down the line. Okay, but it's really important that you actually do set money aside to innovate within the organization. How much money? Well, it depends on who you ask. We would say start somewhere, even if it's just 4% or 2% of your turnover. Yeah, but set money aside to go and innovate. Once you've done that, split the money equally between existing products and making them better. So the stuff in the green space and the stuff in the blue space. Yeah. So type 1 and 2, maybe type 3 can be included depending on what it is that you're busy doing there. And then type 3 and type 4 on the other side. But invest equally. Please note that type 5 innovation we don't see as part of this equation, because that's operational improvement. Yeah, so you get that from your operational budget. Apologies. Set priorities, choose something, go and do something on it, either or not either, on both sides of the fence. Go and do something far out with potential long-term benefits for the organization. Go and create your feature. And number 2 is make sure that you remain competitive and your products can keep on growing. Okay, so those are the priority choices that you need to make. Then, and only then, do you go and say, okay, I've identified an opportunity for innovation in the organization. Let me understand how game-changing behavior or technology can be leveraged within this context. Do not pursue transformational, and now I'm putting it in parentheses, projects that are not transformational at all, because you're actually not changing the way that the customer gets a job done or changing the way that you do business. Yeah, we see tons of projects happening at the moment that are just wasting money, because people are actually, all they're doing is they're busy digitizing the work environment, and that's not transformational. That's not going to give you a competitive edge. We've been doing that stuff since I can remember. And I entered the IT industry in the late or early 80s. Just because it's a technology project and it's based on something that's considered to be disruptive doesn't make it a transformational project. Choose your opportunities well. And that's why we spend so much time trying to understand what are the innovation opportunities that your organization have. I'll talk a little bit about game-changing technologies later. Quick feedback questions before we take a quick 3 to 5 minute break. This is a lot to take in, I know, yeah, and probably not what you expect.
I need to read this again.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're telling me a lot, but I mean, maybe I tend to listen to you and not read the slides, but I seriously need to read the full slides to match the two together.
Yeah. No, true enough. And also bear in mind that coupon that I've given you to download the book. If you haven't downloaded the book yet, go and download the book and read it. Yeah.
Yeah. I have one question, Johan. It's like maybe you come back to that later. Is how are we going to deliver these courses?
Okay.
Don't have to answer me now, but
no, I can give you an answer. Okay. What I'm busy doing is I'm building a vanilla version of the course as an online course also. What is missing from what you're seeing here, and that's what's going to change 3 hours to a day, is more practical examples of what we're actually talking about. Yeah. This is a roller coaster. This is a roller coaster ride. And for people to actually get this, we need to give them examples of what we mean by everything. So I need to give you an example of a job that's been analyzed. I need to give you an example of how do we know where a product is on the product life cycle. I need to, or you need to do that, because I'm going to give you the vanilla slides and you can go and build stuff based on your own experience. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how I am. I delivered a lot of courses, developed a lot of courses also, and I just want to get also. We're at the beginning, but I also want to know how we're gonna really deliver this successful to the audience in that way, or whatever our customers in that way. I mean, I understand that I can make them enthusiastic about it, and I can actually say this, you need this, and I can actually see that we're going to do this. But you obviously have thoughts on what's the best way of actually delivering this.
So 2 things that you need to bear in mind. Okay, I just said that we need to give examples. Those examples needs to be at the level where people will go and say, okay, I get it. But not at the level so this is how I'm going to do it. Because this is not the purpose of the fundamentals course.
Yeah.
The fundamental course is really for you to see the big picture, that when you zoom into doing the practical stuff, you know where it fits. And if you see a dependency, you know where to go and get it. Yeah. The practitioner level courses are practitioner level courses. That means that you need to practice it. Yeah. It means that it's practical. Yeah. So we're going to spend a lot of time at that level on the detail of how do I do this? How do I use this? Yeah. And the fundamental course, as I said, probably a day and a half, if you've got lots of examples. The practitioner courses will have actually the same amount of theory, because we talk about exactly the same stuff, but it would most probably take you 3 or 4 days to go through that, because of the amount of application that you need to think about.
You know, Johan, just based on thinking about that, going from fundamentals to the practical practitioner, because I could see that, with whatever examples, even physically delivering I don't mean face-to-face, but, via Zoom and Mural and all those sorts of things could be done. But I'm thinking then, might at the end, and tell me if you already have this, but at the end of the fundamentals, that they have this like a checklist of things that they can gather together, data together, and things like that they can bring into the practitioner level course.
Awesome idea. No, I haven't got that. Checklist.
Yeah, a checklist of the things they need: resources, data, information, which people need to be in it from their organization. Do you know what I mean? So that it kind of could even be the last unit or last half hour of the course of just pulling that together based on what they've covered in the fundamentals.
Yeah.
But also too, for us to guide them, what will they need to bring to the practitioner course, so that they can make the workshop worth their time.
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea. And Mark Drent had a related comment. He asked for a bringing together of the of all of the concepts just at the end of the course, and I think your checklist would be a really good way to do that.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so quick 5-minute break. If you need a body break, if nobody disappears, then we'll go on.
I need some coffee, so I'll go fetch some coffee.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Jay. Hello, Jay. Hello, Yuan. Hello, Yuan. Yuan, are you there? I can't see everybody in the chat room. Hello, Yuan, are you there?
I think he might be taking the break
Okay, that's fine.
just to refill the coffee cup.
Thanks a million.
And I hear coffee cup making sounds and sighs of relief.
Hello.
I'm back.
You're the only one that's back.
No, I
so
never
mine is
left.
also back. Oh, she never left.
I never left as well.
Okay.
Jay,
Good.
quick one. The picture, the graph which we had looks like an extract from the strategy question 3.
I'm battling to hear you. Don't you just want to quickly type your question?
Yeah, it's already in the chat box.
Okay, let me.
I
Oh,
would
you
make
use
sure.
private chat. Ayo.
Yep, the background.
Yeah, it's not quite. I'll have to go back to the Agile 3 books to exactly see what the correlation is. So I can't answer that question for you now. I don't know.
No,
I didn't hear the question.
There's in the the RAG diagram looks like diagrams from Agile 3 in the 2011 service strategy. I can't remember what David did in that book, and what the correlation is. So I'll go and check. I'll go and look it up and give you an answer back. Okay. Also, don't see it as RAG. Yeah, it's just I just use different colors. Yeah. So I could have used completely different colors and it would have been the same.
Yeah, it's just more or less, it's just about distinguishing the difference between the beginning stages or the excitement of new stuff, what have we already got cash cow, versus what's now dwindling.
Yeah. What's really interesting for me, while we're just waiting for Esam to join again, is how many people is trying to do something with dead products. that people don't realize, when you're in that red space, give it up already. It's not savable.
Well, do you know what? While you were looking at that and talking about it, and you were saying, look, the product that's sort of stagnating, and then the ones that, okay, that maybe we should get rid of it. But when I think back about how we sometimes reuse components, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. What's still viable within those portions? It might not be the whole product, but there might be portions or segments of the dimensions within it that are useful.
Yeah. Can you see the arrows?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly the reason why the arrows are there. So don't think because you actually are about to take a product and discontinue it, that there's nothing in terms of what you've done in the past that's not reusable. Quite often, a lot of that stuff can go into type 3 innovation and help us to scale rapidly.
Yeah, sometimes it's just seeing that component, if you like, from a different perspective. Just sometimes some people can't even imagine that portion of it being utilized in a different way. Sometimes it's just helping them get that creative perspective.
But also, see the type 5 stuff feeding type 2. So remember, this is now a new market for learnings that we've done in the past and for something that we've actually developed that we can rehash and once again rapidly scale. Yeah. So I'm a lazy oak. I don't like doing work that's not necessary. It's the most
That's not being lazy. That's just being smart with your effort and energy.
Yeah. Well, I also say that to people, but I also know myself. Okay, so just before we start with the next section, so all of the stuff that we've talked about now would be in the strategy lead practitioner course. Yeah. Step 1, the purpose stuff, as I did here, not going to spend a lot of time and effort on it. But step 2 and 3 really in detail help you to be able to use the tools and plot it and go and apply it within the context of the organization. This is really about providing insight. And if you've got insight, you can define a strategy to go ahead. So maybe the name of the course, strategy lead, is a little bit misleading because we only look at strategy from one perspective. We look at it from the perspective of creating something that will provide value to customers. There's other elements of strategy also that ADapT doesn't talk about. And we're not going to talk about it because there's other courses out there that's doing that. Yeah. So that's a purposeful decision that I made right at the beginning. I'm not going to do things that other people are doing well. Yeah. This is not intended to be a replacement for anything. Yeah. This is complementary to other best practices out there, and it should be applied in that fashion. Okay.
And that in itself is a good strategy because there is so much out there that we don't need to repeat.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I'll only talk about another, and that's, for instance, why there's not a step about Agile delivery in here. Teaching somebody how to do Agile. There's a step about Agile delivery, but not about teaching them how to do Agile. Yeah. So I touch on a few things that I think is missing in many of the other approaches. And that's the only reason why I touch on them. Yeah. I'm just, okay, so that was the quick break. We're a little bit behind schedule, so I'm going to
move it.
Try and, sorry?
That you're going to move it.
Yeah, I'm going to move it, yeah. So next we're going to talk about two types of things that needs to happen from an innovation perspective within an organization, and something that needs to happen first. So let's talk about the something that needs to happen first. If you don't make innovation a priority in your business today, you will not have a business tomorrow. This is one of the most challenging things that organizations find today, is that the rate of change means that it's really difficult for organizations to remain competitive if they don't start thinking innovation. Yes, somebody else can go and build stuff and you can just sell it and whatever, but you're not really going to build the organization of the future doing that. So we need to prioritize innovation, and you can't prioritize something if you don't give the resources. So what resources do you need to give them? Give innovation to succeed. You need some way of identifying game-changing opportunities. So somebody who's sort of keeping the eye on the ball in terms of what's happening out there, and constantly educating people about the opportunities that changes in society and technology brings. You need to train everyone in the organization how to innovate. Just bear in mind, innovation is a process, and if it's a process, I can teach it to you. Yes, I know and understand not everybody will be equally good at being innovative, but even those intuitive types who are really good at coming up with good ideas, if they don't use the process, they'll fail more often than people using the process that's not talented. So teaching people how to innovate, and then making time and effort and making it part of the fabric of the organization to actually do different types of innovation is really, really important. If you don't create the environment where people can succeed, they're going to be really enthusiastic in the beginning, but it's going to fizzle out very quickly. And that's why I think we need to draw a distinction between operational innovation and the other types of innovation that we're talking about it, and actually institutionalizing it, making time for it, making it part of what we do within the organization. Now, you've heard me using the word game changers, and I don't want to have a list of technology that's considered to be disruptive within the structure of the course, because it may not be tomorrow. Technology has changed the way that we engage with each other, that we behave, that we think, that we believe quite substantially in the last 15 years. And some of these technologies that played a huge role in the shift could not be considered game changers anymore, because it's become commonplace. And that's why I talk about game changers rather than talking about disruptive technology. This, however, means that you have to constantly be aware of what's busy happening out there, how technology is impacting on society, so that you can update the list of game changers constantly. So typically this is the list that you'll find on everybody's slide deck. And artificial intelligence, is it a game changer currently? Yes. Robotic process automation? Maybe. Internet of Things? I still think yes. Blockchain? You bet your bottom dollar. There's some really interesting things in the world of economics that's going to start happening when central banks start with their blockchain, and not necessarily all good. Just bear in mind, whoever controls the blockchain chain knows everything. So don't think just because you've got a centralized official digital currency that it's got the same benefits as Bitcoin. No, the government will see everything that you spend money on, because it is It's transparent. Cloud, is it still? Maybe. Data analytics and technologies around that, is it still? Maybe, in some context. Yeah. The interesting about this is it is also industry dependent. So some industries has utilized and leveraged some of these technologies quite significantly, up to the point where for that industry, it's no longer a game changer. Yeah. Because if you haven't deployed or used or utilized this technology, then you actually just a laggard. But there's others where maybe this wasn't done, and then it may still be a game changer. So be very careful when you think within the context of your organization. Don't name technologies. Understand what is a game changer for you. Yeah. What does it mean for you? What's the potential benefits for the organization, for your industry, for your customers? What's the limit of its value? Yeah. How can you create value? How can you learn from other industries specifically, and try and apply those lessons within your industry? And maybe who can you partner with, especially if it's somebody who's done a lot of work outside of your industry. Start talking to those people, because they can bring experience and insights to your organization that maybe that you've missed, and help you to scale quite rapidly. As I said, teach everybody to innovate. The innovation is a process. And at this stage, I need to say that there is a difference between the process used for type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, there are some common tools and techniques that you can use. Previously, a year ago, I would have said for top 1 to 4 and top 5 not. But subsequently, I've trained more than 220 people using design thinking based principles and concepts and tools in a strictly operational context to do problem solving and paying down technical debt within the context of the organization. So I don't think that's true anymore. So the fundamental easy process that can be used everywhere, maybe not with equal effect. We've defined that based on techniques from design thinking, enhanced and then complemented with techniques that we got elsewhere, predominantly insights from jobs to be done. All of this stuff is documented. All of this stuff can be learned. We've actually written a little book that's called Out Innovate Competition, that took the Google Ventures design sprint concept and expanded on that, to help you use this for, and as I said, the slide still says, maybe not type 5. Well, I've used it now for type 5. Yeah.
You're referring quite often to a number of books. Do you got a literature list?
I'll put it on the list.
You follow what I mean? It's like it would be added value to have that full list of actually
absolutely
suggested reading.
Yeah. It's in the back of the book, actually. If you download Johan's book, there's a literature list in the back.
Okay, yeah.
Which has all this.
I just want to make sure that it's in the back of the purple book also.
But it's more also related to this course. I mean, obviously, a lot of people, when they look at this course, they will maybe not have the book, so they can't refer to the book. And actually, you want to maybe include it at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a little bit academic in that way, Johan. You know what I mean? But I
mean, no, for sure, absolutely. But I think it's a good thing to do, and I'll do that. Even in the back of the purple book, there is a full bibliography, so it's easy for me to do that. This book, although you will be very tempted to buy it, don't buy it now, because it's actually a handbook for a workshop that we do. And I'm going to work this into this middle practitioner certification. Yeah. Another thing that I've decided is that if you are a training provider and you do any training based on this stuff, we will always make the base ADapT literature available for your students for free. Yeah. For me, it's not really about selling books. I'm not going to get rich from selling books. I really just want to spread the message, because I think that we're busy doing stuff there that matters, and makes a difference. So luckily, Jürgen, nobody will ever be in the position that says they can't afford to buy the book, because if they do the course, they'll get the book.
I know it's not about the money, but it's just making sure that they can access all the written knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, very valid point, and it's on my list now.
Yeah.
Now, I can teach you as much as I want how to innovate, but if I don't create a space in which innovation can thrive, it will not work, especially if the ideas that you come up is quite disruptive when viewed from a operational perspective of the organization. Now, if I come up with okay, somebody dropped off. Temple, you're a little bit late, mate, but welcome. Okay. You quickly just want to introduce yourself to the rest of the group.
Great. Good morning. My name is Temple Ehanacho. I'm from Nigeria. I'm very sorry to join late. It's like I'm coming in late right now. Yes.
No problem. Okay. So Temple, are you still active in the economic area, the West African?
Yes. I do a little bit of consulting now for some institutions of ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States. I'm a certified IS auditor, and I'm also an IT specialist. So I'm glad to be in your midst now.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Temple, we are recording the session, and I'll make the recording available so you can catch up. Okay.
Okay.
Don't worry too much. Okay. I'm just going to put you on mute because there's a bit of an echo. Okay. So, say for instance, I come up with an innovative idea, but this innovative idea will actually threaten the long-term sustainability of something that we're already doing. What do you think would be the response of people whose incentivize or whose incentives are based on what we're currently doing going to be towards this new idea? They're going to find any way they can to kill this idea. Yeah, we call it the organizational immune system. Incidentally, in the one of the things listed at the back of the blue book is an article I wrote on Medium about organizational immune systems. Really important to understand that. So you need to create a space where innovation can thrive. And the only way that you can do that is to have one of two things: either a separate innovation space, that's a complete different entity. I would not advise you to do that unless it's really, really necessary. The other thing that you can do is go and create a sandbox, a playpen, an environment where that's part of the organization, but where the organization's governance rules don't apply. It must be a sandbox because people should not be able to argue that by doing something in the sandbox, you can negatively affect the business operations on a day-to-day environment. So it needs to have some separation. The reason why we don't want the governance rules to apply within that sandbox is those rules are put in place to maintain the status quo. And if we try to innovate within those constraints, half, if not more, of the opportunities of doing new and innovative things is going to be impossible to do. Yeah. So really important to create a safe innovation space. This idea is not new. I mean, if you think about Park with in Xerox, I mean, that was what, 1960s. If you think about Skunkworks in Lockheed Martin, that was Second World War. Same type of principle, yeah. How do we know new ideas are being attacked by the immune response of the organization? Well, any of these responses is a good indication for you that you're busy dealing with an immune response. Last time we tried to do this, it didn't work. It will never work here because you want to do this new thing, but it competes with this. This is just really dumb. You are changing my metrics, so you're changing the way that you're measuring me, and that you can't do that. Or a typical human response, I'm really good at this, and now you want me to do something else. And then the ultimate response, which I love, is over my dead body. Incidentally, that can be arranged.
I heard one, like somebody say, like, you can do that when I'm retired.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that's another good one. Yeah.
Actually, I must add that to the list.
Yeah, I think immune response is such a good phrase, or this is such a nice analogy to use, Johan.
Yeah,
but the
I'm going to steal that one from you.
The best way to countermeasure these kind of insane responses are one, just to use a lot of humor and make them ridiculous.
Yeah, you see the problem with, and that's why your innovation space needs to be separated from your day-to-day operational governance. People will say this thing, but what they will then do is they're going to use the rules against you to attack the innovation. Yeah. They're going to say to you, but you can't do that project in that way because our project metric says that you need to meet the following criteria, and it doesn't. Yeah. So every single, attack that you will find on this new idea that you're trying to bring to fruition and grow so that it can create the future of your organization, people will use the rules to destroy that. Yeah. And sometimes it's just not possible to do something within the context of an organization. Yeah, that also happens, unfortunately, and we've got some ideas around that also. Okay, so where should you use this independent space? Definitely for 1, 2, and 3 innovation. It's not necessary for type 4 innovation because that's just making your current products that's better, and nobody's going to say you can't make your current product better. Yeah, that doesn't break the rules. Yeah. Institutionalize innovation efforts into the organization. Make it part of things that we do. Yeah. Set time aside for it. We find once again that if the best way to innovate is in cross-functional teams. That actually goes away and go and, a week and come up with cool ideas, and then you can expand on that further. But what you'll typically find is that your operational manager is going to say, but I'm paying this person, and they should be available to do my work first. And the only way that you're going to change that behavior, we find, is that you change the performance metrics of middle management specifically, significantly, so that they can't make their bonus if they don't play nicely and make resources available for that. Yeah. So David's response was, but operations is important. I know, but 15% of the or 20% of the metrics is not enough that you saying, but operations is not important. But it's enough so that somebody, will be impacted negatively if they don't allow people to do that. How are you going to do that? We've got lots of different ideas. You can use ideas like hackathons and stuff like that, or you can allocate innovation time within each one of your cycles. So if you're doing 2-week sprints, maybe do a 2-week sprint, a 2-week sprint, a 1-week innovation sprint, something like that. How you do it is not important. The fact that you do it is really important. Okay. The next thing that you need, okay, so now you've created the context in which you can innovate. The next thing that you need to do is you need to go and innovate. So use those opportunities to come up with new ideas. This step specifically focuses on product innovation. It's about how we can do things for our customers so that they can get their jobs done better. So this really doesn't focus on operational innovation, and it also doesn't focus on business model innovation, but we've got a space for that. I just need to set the context. Okay, this talks about. Okay, let me do this slide first. So if we now look at that picture that we had before, type 1 to 5, we can put the types into categories also. So type 1 and 2 is really about doing something that the organization hasn't done before. Type 3 and 4 is about doing something that the organization has done before, but we're either going to do it for somebody new or we're going to make things better. And then the last category would be, sort of type 5 innovation. We really focuses on doing what we do better. So this conversation is a category A and B conversation. It is not a category C conversation. Okay, so how do we innovate? Well, there's tons of ideas out there about innovation, and most probably the thing that most organizations love to use, because it works pretty well, is design thinking. But even with using design thinking principles and so forth, incidentally, I'll add these 2 books to the list also. So this is the workbook for 2 books, and that's the theory book. Brilliant, Do you want the design thinking playbook and the toolbox? Awesome resources. Incidentally, when I work, all the books that I'm working with on a day-to-day basis is always on the right-hand side of my desk, and the rest of the stuff is on my bookshelf. So I've got about, 20 books next to me, because they're constant references of things that we do. Okay, squirrel. I forgot to tell you that about me. Yes, attention deficit. So design thinking is a really awesome way of innovating, but it needs to be reined in. And unfortunately, there's a bunch of tools and techniques that's crept into the design thinking world that really makes organization make really bad innovation choices. Let me give you an example. What's that map thing that people quite often do? Where you empathize with the customer and try and, or journey mapping. Journey mapping is done so badly today that I'll guess the good 80% of journey maps used within the design thinking context misdirects efforts. So what we've done is we've combined techniques within that little purple book, based on a design thinking approach that's called the Design Sprint from Google Ventures, and specifically made sure that you don't make the bad mistakes and make bad decisions. One of the best ways to make sure that you don't make bad decisions is understand the customer's jobs. Okay, because that's real. Yeah, it's not imagined. A journey map is often just imagined, and doesn't matter how you empathize with somebody, if your context and your reference is different to the customer that you're trying to serve, you're going to make assumptions that's bad assumptions. Okay, so why is jobs to be done so important? Because it really focuses on customer outcomes. Yeah. So I've talked about this. I'm not going to belabor it anymore. If you compare our design thinking approach to a traditional design thinking approach, what we do is we don't empathize in the beginning, we understand. Yeah. And I'm not saying don't empathize as part of understanding, but make sure that you've got substantive evidence about what it is that you're trying to go and achieve. And then we've added an additional step, and that's validating ideas before you start prototyping. And doing a little bit more detailed design. Okay, so not a big difference conceptually, but in the way that it's applied, it is actually quite a big difference. Here, I just want to, I love the, London School of the UK Design Council, I think. Representation of design thinking conceptually. It's called the double diamond. There's a bunch of rules around this. So first of all, you need to understand what the problem is that you're trying to solve before you can solve it. And especially IT people sucks at that. Yeah. Customers start talking about a problem that they have, and we're already thinking about what the solution is. Okay. Rule number 1, never operate in the problem space and the solution space at the same time. Okay. In both the problem and the solution space, it's always better to consider as much as possible, broaden your horizons, and then have a logical, structured mechanism of getting rid of ideas that's not feasible. So that's called diverging and converging. Rule number 2, never diverge and converge at the same time. Rule number 3, it is always better to diverge as an individual and converge as a group. One of the reasons why brainstorming efforts quite often fail is because people converge and diverge at the same time, and they do it as a group. So what we've done within the structure of what we teach people around innovation is to make it safe for people to come up with ideas and to minimize criticism, because the moment you're being criticized for an idea, you will stop contributing. And let's face it, all of us has got bad ideas. Yeah. In fact, one of the things that I teach people is when you on your own come up with ideas around the problem or whatever, for instance, come up with at least 20 ideas, because the first 3 or 4 will be obvious. The next 6 or 7 will be nonsense, really bad ideas. And it's only once you've broken through that barrier that you kind of come up with ideas that's outside of the norm. That will be good ideas. So all of us will always have bad ideas when we think about solving problems. Yeah. So really, that's why it's so important to not diverge as a group. So if you overlay that onto the double diamond, onto the traditional design thinking approach, that's what it looks like. So I call it rules. Okay, if you want to call it heuristics, that's better. It's not a hard and fast rule, but yeah, it will help you a lot. And then the last rule that I just want to add here is, if you're busy thinking about innovation, think about innovation, not about operations. So it's really important that you actually do set time aside to come up with good ideas. Typical innovation sprint. So you can do it in 3 or 4 days. Yeah. Come up with really good validated data. And you most probably could have about I don't know, anything between a 60 and an 80% chance of any type of innovation working. You say, but that's terrible. Well, if you don't do it using the process you're going to come up with maybe 10% of the time it will work. So no, it's not terrible. It is awesomely better. If we use jobs to be done together with design thinking, it implies that there's pre-work to be done. You have to go into the innovation sprint with some data. Yeah, so your job mapping must be done before you start doing that. For me, that's the best way to actually apply it, is to not to come up with. So the Google sprint starts with something that they call Ask the Experts. Problem is, experts don't always know. Yeah, if you've got real data because you've done proper job maps, your starting point will always be better. At the end of the 3 or 4 days, you can make 3 types of decisions. Go for it. It's worth us spending time and effort to go and do detailed product design and go and build and implement something. Or, no, this is a bad idea. Customers don't want this. Or, yeah, customer seems to like it, but there's certain things that we didn't understand. And that's when we do another innovation sprint iteration to go and fix stuff that we didn't understand. When you think about the solution, remember, it's not about the technology. It's about what the technology enables you to do. So once you've identified a customer need, always go back and say, okay, in the light of that, how does new game-changing tech enable, or could it enable me to do something in such a revolutionary way that I can change my industry? Yeah, so that should always be sort of a first prize when you think about the solution. Is and one of the techniques that we use within the innovation sprint is about spending 10 minutes looking for cool ideas on the internet about the use of tech outside of your industry. And then just telling everybody why you thought it was a cool idea. Yeah. And that already brings that, top of mind. Innovation checklist most probably needs some updating. It's a little bit old, but I thought, since it is a process, maybe you should use something like this. We can go and refine this later. Yeah. Okay, so that's all I want to say about the innovation process. Now, it doesn't matter how good the ideas are that you come up with and how much customers tells you that, they love the stuff that you showed them, because we actually do build prototypes during the innovation process. You need to make sure that this can work within the operational context of your organization. So this brings us to your business model. So important that we do have a view of what the impact of new ideas would be on the business model, and then evaluate if we can accommodate that impact. And unfortunately, in some organizations, some really innovative ideas will never be able to operate, because the gap between where the organization's operating model or business model is at the moment and where it needs to be for that product to be successful is just too big. Now, you can obviously use an executive decision to force it. Our experience is that these forced decisions tends to blow back on the organization. So it's better to, especially at the start of this journey, the first few iterations, not to rock the boat too much. That doesn't mean don't change things. Yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, people need to get used to this new way of thinking and operating. Once again, yeah, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to base what we do in this step based on something that we know works. Yeah, so I love the strategizer stuff. Use a lot of the tools and techniques. Yeah. What we've done is we've changed the business model canvas slightly to accommodate some things that we need to achieve within the innovation context. Please note the colors. Can you see where you get all of this information from? It comes from your product boards. Yeah. Remember the product boards had exactly the same colors? Yeah. So really easy to quickly go and create a transformational canvas for the new idea that you've got. And then compare it to the business model canvas with these changes that we've made that you currently use to operate. Identify the gaps, see what you can do about the gaps, if it is feasible to address the gaps before you spend time, effort, and money to go and build a new product that maybe could never work within your environment. Yeah. So don't set yourself up for failure. That being said, though, push. Yeah. Don't make it too easy to say, no, we don't want to change the current business model. Yeah. Okay, so that's one of the things that we need to think about when we introduce or when we talk about business models, is when we introduce new ideas into the organization, making sure that the business model supports the success criteria or the criteria or the things or the operations or whatever is necessary to make the new innovation work within the context of the organization. So easy way to do it, doesn't have to take long. Most of these exercises takes about half an hour to an hour. Yeah. You don't have to do it at great level of detail. You just need to do it well enough to prevent you running into a brick wall. Okay, that brings me to another bit that we need to talk about when we talk about business models. And this is sort of a technique that's on the slide, so don't read the slide now. I first want to talk about a concept here. Okay. Yes, the introduction of new products and services may be a game changer for our industry and for our organization, but similarly, technology enables us to change the way that we do business also. So business model innovation is a very real opportunity for organizations to excel. Yeah. And that being said, let me quickly tell you about the technique that we normally use with more senior people within the organization. The technique, once again, not new. It's as old as the mountains. In fact, it was first used in the mid-60s at AT&T. The concept is called idealized design. This is how it works. Imagine that your business is gone. Nothing of what you're doing today is left. You've got an unlimited supply of money, and you need to rebuild your business, knowing what you know today, having access to the technology that you have today, what would that business look like? So you've got the freedom to completely reimagine your business. Then go and build a canvas for that and compare it to your current environment and look for opportunities to improve. So this is an awesome exercise to do, yeah, and very simple to do. So idealized design. So what would you typically learn within this practitioner thing? You will learn about how to plan for successful innovation. We'll teach you a bunch of innovation techniques and how to apply them, which includes business model innovation. Yeah. If you ask me about all of the stuff in ADapT, yeah, which practitioner course am I the most excited about? This is the bit that really spins my motor. This is fun. Any questions? Okay, if there's no questions, it's normally an indication of one or two things. It may be an indication that I explained everything brilliantly, or
Let's keep it at that.
or it's clear as mud.
Or it's still processing.
Yeah, this is actually quite a lot to go through in 3 hours, but I'm quite sure all of you are capable of doing it.
Like I said a half an hour ago, I still need to go over these slides again to process, like Simone said it there. So yeah.
Anybody need to take a quick break again, or can we continue?
Wouldn't mind having another cup of coffee. So
Okay,
2 minutes.
let's make it another 3 minutes.
Yeah, remember, we're not bulletproof. We need good flak jackets.
And he's coming every time with his Kit Kat. So I'm gonna fetch some chocolate because he's actually teasing me here.
Okay, we'll see you back in 3 minutes.
Chocolate.
Okay, I saw there was something in your hand.
Tony Chocoloni.
Where
must
does
say,
that come from? Because I've only the first time I saw it was in the Netherlands.
It's a brilliant brand and such a great story behind it.
Yeah,
Quickly
and
tell
very
while we're
addictive.
waiting.
What was that again?
Very
Tell while we're
addictive.
waiting.
I
Say
didn't
again.
quite get it.
I say, Simone, tell the story while we're waiting.
Oh, tell the story. Sorry, it was that terrible accent that goes against the Aussie listening.
Yeah.
Well, the background behind it, and if you ever buy a Tony Chocoloneli's bar, you'll notice that there's no even pieces. Nothing is even at all. And
Okay.
and as part of that, their story is that they want to remove all the slavery associated with the whole process of having chocolate, right from the farms to
Okay.
and remove children's slavery and things like that through the whole process. So you know how we talk about the visibility of the supply chain,
Yeah.
and what we do, and that's their focus. And so
Okay.
they've got this whole mission around how the cocoa, from when it's grown to when it's filtered to by the time it gets into your hands. And the thing behind having all the pieces not of equal size and shape is the visual remembering that not everything is fair.
Yeah. Okay. I've wondered about that. The not equal size blocks.
No, and there was a reason for that.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, but it's actually very good chocolate to eat.
Yeah. When I'm in the Netherlands, I do eat Tony Chocolonely. But my question is it the Dutch brand? Because that's where I first saw it.
Oh, I think it was created originally there. That's also their head office. In fact, I had in fact, Tony Chocolonely is one of the people featured in the technology documentary that we did earlier this year, that was released earlier this year, or was it December?
Okay.
Yeah, on the the Youth Rise in Power and the influence of, yeah. So definitely look into it because it's a great story.
Okay,
it's
awesome.
Great fun to listen to.
Awesome. Everybody is back, I assume. I can't see everybody's camera, so that's okay. So if you're not, tell me to wait. Okay, so now we're going to shift over into the delivery side of things. So it's really about, if you've come up with an idea, make sure that it's built and made available to people, and scale as rapidly as you can. You'll see a little bit later my use of the word scale is different to what many other people think about when they talk about scaling. So this is really until the orange bit, until we get to expand, nothing is real yet. So this is about making things real. So the seventh step is where, if I was silly, I would have taught you a agile method, but I'm not going to do that. Just bear in mind that we're assuming that you understand the concept of agile and at least know one agile method relatively well. And I just hope that it's the right agile method that you know well. And you'll hear a bit later why I'm saying the right agile method. I'm a Scrum fan, and I'm unapologetically about it. So obviously that would, to a large extent, influence the way that I write about agile. There are, however, some things that's not addressed in Scrum that I thought is necessary for us to talk about. Yeah. And what many people don't realize is, Scrum is extremely simple, but it's a last mile agile method. Yeah. There's a lot of things that needs to happen before you've got a product backlog. Yeah. So I do talk a little bit about some of that stuff. And that's why large organizations tend to have difficulties with Scrum. And then they make bad decisions about things that they choose. So what do I consider to be a good agile method versus a bad agile method? For me, the way to do that is to check what the method teaches you against the principles in agile. So when we all know this over that statement, the 4 values. But what most people don't or forget is that there's actually 12 principles. And it's these 12 principles that's really, really important when you choose a agile method. I'm not going to go through the values, the principles in detail. You can just read through them and compare the method that you use with each one of these principles. And if you use some of the methods that we don't endorse, you will most probably not be able to say yes with each one of these to each one of these principles. Okay. Incidentally, these principles is not only about working agilely, it's also about creating a humane work environment. Yeah. So this is really a fundamental underpinning of a good agile method, is that it makes the work environment a better place to work in. As I say, I love Scrum. That's my method of choice. I'm also DSDM certified, so I know DSDM well, and I don't have any issue with anything that's taught within DSDM. I think it's a brilliant way of doing it. Yeah, for organizations that wants a little bit of a more heavy-handed approach, I would definitely recommend that you look at something like Agile PM or whatever, which is the course that's based on the DSDM stuff. Incidentally, it's now called ABC, the Agile Business Consortium, because so many people are using it for non-software projects. DSDM used to stand for Dynamic Software Development Method. So we really recommend that you understand Agile well, and these are the programs that we would endorse. Why? Because they adhere to all 12 of the principles of Agile. Anybody got a question of why something is not on the screen?
While you're asking, PMI ACP?
I don't know it well enough to be able to comment. Okay.
Got it.
I was hoping that somebody asked me about another word that I absolutely detest.
No, don't use that 4-letter word.
Because it's not safe, yes.
And there are other acronyms used from it.
Yeah. So, there's, I don't know, in South Africa, we find that the corporates that wants to say that they're agile, but don't want to change, they all adapt safe. Why? Because 4 of the agile principles, the difficult ones, is not used in safe.
I think it's also just a good note here that, you know, when we talk about agile, a lot of people think being agile or fast, or, you know, they forget that it's actually not just about being fast, it's about being fluid. And they forget that governance is still, like, just because you're agile does not mean you ignore the governance factors. Yeah.
The rules is just different. And that's important, is that you realize that the rules are different, and they're quite drastically different. Yeah. It doesn't mean that there's no rules. Yeah. So one of the things that I like teaching people is to say, okay, cool. You've done an innovation sprint. You've come up with an idea. You've validated that this is what you need to do. But how do you go from this idea that you've got to actually having a product backlog? Yeah. What needs to happen in between? And there's a very simple technique that I can actually teach you. It's called job mapping. Once again, not my ideas. It's just something that I'm using. And if you look at the typical job map, does that look familiar? Have you seen something else before that looks similar to this?
It's like storyboarding for a film script.
Yeah. Yeah. So your story map and your job maps, there's lots of overlap. Yeah. So if we've done good job mapping, and we've come up with an idea around a job or a number of jobs or whatever, we can very easily convert our job map into a story map. And if you've done a story map, you've basically got a product backlog. Yeah. In essence, the only sort of big differences that we did here is we grouped things, and not necessarily into those, what was it, nine steps that we had in the job map. So you may group it differently. Then we prioritize things that needs to be done. So that helps us now to immediately see, which things should be at the top of the backlog and which should be a little bit lower down at the backlog. So if you don't have a product backlog, we virtually always start with doing story maps. A very easy way to create product backlogs. Okay, remember it's going to be at a high level. So one of the things that we've just identified in that story map is, where we're going to start. What's our starting point? And this is another thing that I find lots of people misunderstand, is this concept of a minimum viable product. And many organizations I see are busy working on things that's minimum and product, but they forgot that it needs to be viable. And you really can't understand what is viable unless you understand, once again, the customer's job well enough. A minimum viable product will always focus on the core job, and it needs to do something complete, totally complete, that creates some value for the customer. Now, in Scrum, we would say that if you didn't deliver a shippable product within a sprint, then your sprint failed. And I know some people disagree with me with this. So what they do is they start adding words into it and say potentially shippable, but that's not really usable, so you can't deploy it. Yeah. Remember, the Scrum guide said that a sprint should be 1 month or less. We quite often tell customers to make their sprints in the beginning of the process longer. Why? Because they need to deliver something that's usable. Yeah. So yes, I understand it's good to have cadence within your sprints, and so most people seems to get stuck on the 2-week bit, but quite often it's a good idea to make your first few sprints maybe a month, so that you can deliver something concrete, that can be deployed. Once you've got a MVP in the hands of a customer, then you can start doing other stuff. You can add little bits of value as you go along and think about your maintaining or coming back to your 2-week cadence. What if you can't? If a month is not enough, then you need to start thinking about scaling. And this is where most organizations, I think, gets it wrong, and where many of the scaling agile methods gets it completely wrong. Because by trying to do scaling, first of all, they're trying to work ahead, they're trying to plan ahead. They take authority away from the people who's doing the work. So you've got no more self-managed teams. We start lying about always delivering value. Yeah. So there's already 3 principles that I can think about that we're breaking. So if you choose a scaling technique, you can scale in terms of how much work is done within an iteration. Do not try and scale across iterations. And definitely do not try and scale your product backlog. That's the 4th rule that we're basically breaking, because there's sort of this principle. If you look at the 12 principles, there's a Scrum principle that says one product owner, one product backlog. And those of you who are familiar with the Exxon syllabus will tell me, yes, but in your book, you're telling us we can do some of the other stuff. No, I didn't. Exxon insisted that it wasn't the syllabus, and I told you this is how you do it, but it's a bad idea. Okay, so if you're looking for a scaling mechanism, my preference is Nexus, and that's also what we teach you in the Exxon syllabus as a scaling mechanism. Yeah, and I'm just repeating why many of the other scaling mechanisms that's used is not Agile, because it breaks the rules. If you're sitting with a really complex minimum viable product, well, most probably it's not minimal. So make it less complex. Once again, if you understand the job that the customer is trying to get done, you will most probably be able to find that you can deliver something within a month using multiple sprint teams or Scrum teams working together that will satisfy, even if it's not the big job, then maybe a little job. So make it less complex. Don't use short sprints in the beginning. Work with multiple teams. Make sure that you enable a job, even if it's a very small job, to get done completely. And avoid using water scrum full, because that's what release planning is. You're just starting to plan ahead again. And the problem with release planning is the fact that if you do release planning, it means that the people who's doing the work is not necessarily doing the planning. And for me, one of the things that's sacrosanct around the idea of working agilely is that the people who's doing the work must make the decisions, because we want to hold them accountable. Remember, this is something that I taught my kids from early on. Never take accountability for something that you can't control. There's another one that's not related to this, but you may appreciate this one also. Never take no from somebody who doesn't have the authority to say yes. Go and think about that one.
That depends on how many pips they have on their shoulder.
But here's the thing. So we engage typically today with a service desk, yes?
Yeah.
And the service desk is only empowered to say no. So me and my kids, we don't do that. We're a pain in the butt. I'll go and find somebody who can say yes, and if they say no, then it's no. I have to accept that. I'm not saying never take no for an answer. I'm just saying, it's stupid to take no from somebody who's only enabled or empowered to say no. Yeah, that's not the right way of looking at life. Okay, then another big challenge that I find is that customers want to know, what's coming down the line. Yeah, when are we going to get things done? And that will always happen in the beginning when you go agile. And it's an education process, number one. And number two is you have to sort of earn the trust, because when something's going to get done is the wrong answer or wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is, will we get stuff done right? Yeah. So are there going to be constant value being added? But to make it easier and more palatable, I would suggest that you start using roadmaps. Remember, roadmaps are not Gantt charts, although they look like a Gantt chart. It's not a commitment. Just want to check if I've got the book here, or is it lying somewhere else? It's lying in front of my bed, in fact. But there's a really good book about roadmaps.
The reason why you have a bookcase.
Yeah, but then I have to get up. Yeah. It's not on the bookcase, by the way. I know where it is. It's lying in front of my bed because I was actually referencing it 2 nights ago. Okay,
I'm sorry, guys, but I'm slightly different than Johan. I got a bookcase on my left side, and everything I want is in there. I can see it. He was referring to the ITIL 3 books. I can see them. I can see the strategy books and everything. I know where they are. And I'm not reading this kind of books before I go to bed. I read other books about whiskey and golf.
I also tend to read other books. It was just the problem that I needed to solve before a meeting in the morning.
Yeah, I know how it
that's
goes.
Why.
Yeah,
I think there's some very good sci-fi fantasy books that help in our industry,
Yeah, I'm actually reading an interesting book at the moment. That's fantasy. Actually, I'm listening to it. Oh, that's not true. Neil Stephenson's Fall.
Oh, I have heard of it.
Okay, so if you haven't read Neil Stephenson, he's absolutely brilliant. As a starting book, I would recommend Remedy or Anathema.
And the other thing, Johan, this is interesting because while we're going through this ADapT, I'm thinking how often we are having to help our clients understand that innovation is not fantasy. It takes work.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you can't imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I think sometimes sci-fi fantasy does help.
Yeah. And then another very interesting series of books that I'm reading, there's 3 of them. Some of you may find this a bit very far out there. It's Thomas Campbell's books, and the first one is called My Big Toe Awakening.
I've never heard of it, but I mean, it will be interesting, I think.
So Thomas Campbell's background is he's a physicist. So you can imagine a quantum physicist's view on reality and spirituality. Very interesting book. If you like The Matrix, go and read My Big Toe. Okay. Why is that gone? Why don't you see my...
Your slides went away.
Yeah, why? That's weird.
That's part of the mystery.
It's our fantasy.
Yeah.
Share the screen. window share.
It moved to another dimension.
Yeah. So you've got it. Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Done.
You know, as part of innovation, sometimes it's good to confuse a customer so he opens up.
That's true. How neuroscientists of you.
Yeah.
There's this
Here's
thing
something.
also. I had a project with Johan, and I remember clearly that both of us started arguing with each other about a specific topic, and the customer sat there looking at us in a way like, "What's going on?"
What's cool about it is if you then reach consensus, the customer really believes that it's the right thing.
Yeah, I believe we reached consensus at that time.
Yeah, just bear in mind when Jürgen says argue, we don't mean argue as an argue. Yeah, we just
No, it's a discussion with passion.
we were discussing something from different points of view.
Yeah, with passion and commitment.
Well, that's now something that a genuine Dutchman and a real Dutchman can do. For those of you who don't know what the difference is, a real Dutchman comes from the Netherlands. Yeah, a genuine Dutchman is a leftover of all the people that was sort of rebelled against the system and left the Netherlands 400 years ago and ended up in the Southern Free State.
Yeah. Put those two together.
I'm not going to
as a
look at this
customer.
one.
No.
I always smile when the real Dutchman tells me, yeah, but you know, we're very direct. You've got no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Very important. Stop thinking about Agile as a project management methodology. It's not. It's a way of doing product management, and it's actually a continual improvement methodology. The moment you make that head shift, a lot of the arguments about project work and that the confusion about the way that we traditionally did projects is going to disappear. You've got a product. Maybe it's a concept of a product. And this is about realizing that product and making it better every now and again. Yeah, whether it being 2 weeks or a week or 4 weeks or whatever. Yeah. And all of the good Agile methods actually recognize that it is not about project management. Let me explain to you why I say it's not about projects. The definition of a project is something, or part of the definition of a project is that it's got a beginning and a definite end state. Do you agree? When a project is done, the project is done. Yeah?
Correct.
But in Agile, if you're working off a product backlog, it will never be done because there will always be new requirements. Yeah?
No such
And
thing
that's
as
why
a
I say
zero
it's about,
period.
yeah. So that's why I say it's continual improvement. Yeah. Okay. Then, once you've developed your product and it's working and it's giving value to a customer, then you need to get it to more people. Yeah. Faster. Spread the love. So when I talk about scale, I'm not talking about the stupid scaling that people talk about within the Agile space. I'm talking about scaling reach. Yeah. So this is most probably the part of ADapT that's the least well defined. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that we actually need to also in ADapT start talking about digital marketing, or at least draw connections, because how do we get stuff into people's hands faster these days? Yeah. Think about it. Yeah. The other thing that you also then need to do is you need to bear in mind that if you have a minimum viable product, that's not where it ends. You first need to get rid of the M bit, yeah. So it just becomes a viable product, yeah, that helps the organization or your customer to get their core and the related jobs done as well as possible. Because if you can do that, then I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use it. You'll know what I mean. I don't mean it in a bad way. You own the customer, yeah. Okay, so really the challenge in scaling is, especially if you're doing type 1, 2, and sometimes type 3 innovation, is to get to the other side of the chasm, which is a really difficult thing to do. Because the customers in the blue, the visionary customers, are not trusted by pragmatists. They want to see people like them using a product before they're willing to take a chance on it. And that's why it's so important to try and find, even if you started with type 1 and 2 innovation, to try and find a pragmatist who's got a specific problem, and then turn that type 1 and 2 innovation into a type 3 innovation initiative. Yeah? That's the easiest way to get across the chasm. If you find somebody like that, just bear in mind, you need to give that customer your all. Jeffrey Morse talks about, if you find somebody like that, you want to make sure that you can be the big fish in the small pond. Yeah. Because it's very easy to go from a big fish in a small pond to being a accepted fish within the ocean. Yeah. So really give it your all. Put a lot of effort into making it work for that customer and customers like that, because that would be the first bit of scaling that you can do, is to go to other people like that customer and say, yeah, we've solved this problem for XYZ, and we know we can solve it for you also. Yeah. And that's the easiest way to scale. I've talked about continual improvement. Need to go on. Here's another concept that we've introduced into the Excellent Scrum syllabus. It's this idea of having a improvement backlog. Now, if you go and read the Scrum literature, they would say that any improvement that's identified during a retrospective should become part of your backlog. But what if that improvement is a universal improvement? It's a general improvement. It's not specific to the product. Or if during the course of doing your work, you found things that needs to be improved in dependencies, what do you do with that? So in ITIL, we used to talk about this a CSI register. The concept of an improvement backlog is similar to that. And what we've started doing with many of our customers now is we always encourage somebody to include a story from the improvement backlog also during a iteration or a sprint. It's not enough that you create the list. Because if you don't do something about it, all that you're doing is that you're actually keeping record of how your technical debt is getting more. Yeah. So really important to find ways of working on technical debt and making that less and less every time you go through an iteration. Marketing and sales, as I said, yeah, start thinking about That also as part of your conversation. I don't have an answer yet how I'm going to do that. But I've realized that we need to do that. Yeah, we really need to think about how we can scale by telling people using the right tools and techniques. And this is also what I started asking you right at the beginning of our conversation. Help me to use social media to get more people to know about this stuff, because I really truly believe that all of us can make a difference using these simple techniques. Before I do the last little bit, and the last little bit is really about operational improvement. Yeah. I'm quite sure that if you start thinking about the things that we've talked about, you would be able to think about a ton of other things that needs to be worried about when you think about digital transformation. And you would love to come back to me and say, yes, but we need to include this and that and that and that and that. I've realized, and this is, if you've ever heard of Botha's law, here it is. Complexity brings inertia. So what I really try to do with ADapT is to focus on a recipe, and I'm not saying it's the only recipe, that can help organizations move forward. Because most incumbent organizations, when we start talking to them about digital transformation, they are like deer in the middle of the road. Yeah, they can see they can see the car coming, but they're paralyzed because of all of the complexity of things that needs to be done. So what I've tried to do is to work out a very simple method that can at least get people moving. If you want to make it complex, do it after the 5th or 6th iteration. If you want to go and add some other stuff that you've read somewhere else, there's some really cool things that you can do. But this is a really simple way to get started. Yeah. So remember, complexity brings inertia. So the last step is really about type 5 innovation, which is sort of continual improvement. Yeah, both in terms of our the way that we operate, and also in terms, most probably, in some sense, also operations specifically related to how we deliver and market and support products and services. Yeah. Most of the fundamental concepts in stage or in step number 9, last step, are based on lean. Yeah. So there's 2 things that I'm really passionate. Actually, there's now 3 things that I'm really passionate about outside of ADapT. This issue of jobs to be done, Agile, and lean. And I think if you've mastered most of the techniques within those 3 areas, you can be very valuable to customers. I told you about the using the innovation sprint method to actually do problem management. So I had a customer, or I've still got the customer, but constantly every year when we do an assessment, problem management sucks. And they keep on sending people on courses, and it keeps on sucking. And I realized that the intervention that was necessary was a cultural change, and we need to break the mold in terms of the traditional things that people are taught in terms of problem solving. So in the IT organization of that organization, there's 224 people. Yeah, so it's not a small IT organization. In the last year, I've taught this technique to every single person. And we use the same technique to do major incident management and then to do problem management. The only difference is, getting customers running, and then addressing a cause versus addressing the root cause. Yeah. None of the stuff in this approach is based on anything that comes from the old traditional ways. Yeah. So there's some lean techniques in there, there's some design thinking techniques in there, and it works brilliantly. And it's pretty much the same technique that I would have taught you to do innovation, yeah, with a few twists. Yeah. So this is definitely one of the micro or mini credentials that we're going to add, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. Sources of improvement actions, change in direction of the business. So that means you have to change the business model, operational issues. So that's solving problems, paying down technical debt. So that's the last two, yeah. And we really have to focus on starting to pay down technical debt in environments. We are so constrained by the bad decisions that we've made in the past and never done something about it that we can't move fast enough forward. So a high priority to start paying down technical debt. Then there's a little bit of things, and it just gives you background as to lean and so forth. I'm not going to go through that. What I would also stress is that as you start building, running, developing products and stuff like that, you need to really start carefully thinking about measurement. And then as a result of that, instrumentation and automation. Huge opportunities in organizations, but it starts with measurement and understanding how the business operates and should operate. Obviously, if you can measure stuff and you can standardize work, that means it's a candidate for automation. And when I talk about automation, yeah, I'm talking about traditional automation. There most probably the what was it, RPA stuff would come in. So I'm not talking about automation in this as in the sense of AI. Yeah, rule-based automation. A word of caution, though, there's a downside to automation, and we assume that when we've automated something, that it's going to continue to work. But that's not true, because as the context of the operation changes, the rules that was used to define the standardization also changes. So we need interventions in step number 9 to, from time to time, re-evaluate whether the standardized way of doing things is still the right way of doing things, or are we busy working against ourselves? In fact, I would venture a guess about 60 to 70% of major incidents within IT context is because of outdated standardization and automation. You thought having processes and standard operating procedures is going to help you. They can also get you in trouble if you don't keep them up to date. Yeah. So what does this type 5 innovation sprint looks like? This is what it looks like. Yeah, define the problem, look for possible causes, narrow down the possible causes, define the hypothesis, test the hypothesis. Who can see the similarity between this and something else? In the lean space. Doesn't this look like an A3 to you? Yeah. I would also highly recommend that you, if you're not into the lean space, that you start understanding lean. Yeah. I'm not a big Six Sigma fan. And principally because most of the environments that I work in is service-based environments. And Six Sigma has got a high level of dependency on objective measurement. And it's really difficult to measure objectively in a service context. And what people then start doing is they start manufacturing metrics. I call them proxy metrics, and then they start making bad decisions. So that's why I'm not saying don't do Lean Six Sigma. You're going to learn a lot from that. But I'm a Lean fan. Jeffrey Liker, go and read all the books. If it's a book that the cover is white and red, pretty much you can read it. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the last stage of ADapT, which is expand. This is most probably the area that's the least well defined in ADapT at the moment, just because there's so much that you can do context depending. But this practitioner course will most probably be impossible to do unless you know one of the Agile methods well. Because there would just be too much that we have to teach you. Yeah. Input in terms of this and how we can address this is welcome, because except for the fact that I need to tell you, make sure that you've got one of these Agile certifications before you do this course. I don't know how to address this. Yeah. But I know it's most probably going to cause problems down the line.
So you would have to define prerequisite.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to define a prerequisite, but as it stands at the moment, it's going to be really difficult for somebody to actually get value from this without proper grounding. Yeah.
So you don't want to define a prerequisite, but you say without the prerequisite and the fulfillment of that, you will be a disaster.
Yeah. So remember what I said. I don't necessarily want to do that. It doesn't mean that I have to do it. I must probably have to do it.
Yeah. Is it more like saying, because from what I see from this, I know this is the fundamentals of ADapT, but is it more like saying that a background knowledge or experience with Agile approaches, maybe not just methods? Maybe you don't necessarily have to have certification, but they've got, maybe they've been part of Agile teams, but just don't necessarily have certification.
Makes sense what you're saying.
That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes, and if it still remains a problem, then we're going to say you need a certification.
Yeah, but you know what I have is like the fact is that if people come with the wrong knowledge and they're free to determine if they have the right knowledge themselves, and then when they're on the course and they take a deep dive and they need to swim, but in the end they're going to say like, the course was not for me. I mean, I just want to be safe on the selling side, and the intake in that way to make it a successful course.
I just
valid.
think from the, if we say some experience, like I know you're not defining anything particular. I think for the fundamentals, that having having been in or amongst or part of the industry around Agile and those sorts of things is kind of cool, or DevOps or Lean, there will be that understanding there. I think during the fundamentals for ADapT, when we're saying we recommend you actually do more formal learning in these areas before practitioner, perhaps that's the place for it.
Yeah. And maybe you'll see an opportunity in the next few slides also, because so what happens after step number 9? Well, you either go to step 1 or 2. You say, but that's silly. Why don't you just make it one thing? Well, here's the thing. Step 1 was about purpose, wasn't it? So how likely is it that our purpose is going to change? Most probably not. Do we have to, from time to time, check whether we're still aligned with our purpose? Yeah. So that's why I'm saying going back to step 1 or 2. I don't think you have to go back to step 1 every time. Yeah. But maybe,
Well, you'll have a new baseline, won't you? Because you've already moved through a cycle, so there'll be a new baseline.
yeah, but it depends on what you've done during that baseline. So, I mean, in the beginning, I applied it very religiously, but then I realized that the conversation with the customer was actually a 2-minute conversation. So should you check? Probably, yeah. Should you spend a lot of time on it? Probably not. Yeah. But maybe it's a good thing to check at least. Yeah. Have I lost somebody?
Nope, not me.
Okay, IO is
You
gone.
did actually.
Temple is gone. Okay. Okay. So you remember it is an iterative approach. I recommend that you go through a cycle every 3 months. Yeah. And at least get something done. Yeah. Don't get too distracted by other guidance out there. I'm not saying don't read other guidance. There's some really good guidance out there in terms of digital transformation. And specifically, I want to recommend this book. As a reference. And then, okay, they're not here. They're on my bookshelf. But I'll put that in the reading list that I will make for you guys. Oh no, it is here.
You don't have to make it a heavy thing. A suggested reading is also good. Eh?
Yeah. There's a follow-up book of him also. Really good stuff. Yeah. Okay. So cadence every 3 months. Good idea. And then the last little bit that I want to talk to you about is just maybe setting some context and how you can play a role and be part of the movement, because this is really what I want it to be. I want it to be a movement. If you are a consultant, there's definite opportunities to use this simple method to go and help your customers. And the 3 certifications was specifically defined like that because I think that would enable you to operate in a specific space as a consultant. But this is new, yeah. Just the mere fact that people telling me this is awesome and people who's using it telling me this is awesome and my customers are happy when I use it, doesn't mean that I can't learn. Yeah. And the best way to learn and improve is to be part of a community. And so that's really what I want us all to think about, is to become part of this community. Now, the first thing that you're going to ask me is this, I'm going to write an exam, and who's the exam institute? And my answer is, there is no exam institute. And you say to me, but why? Somebody needs to give it gravitas. Yes and no. I think the last 2 years worth of what's happening within the certification space has opened a lot of us eyes around the industry and maybe the value. I must be careful what I say.
No, you don't.
That is brought about by independent validators. So this is what I would rather have to happen. Now, clearly at the moment, somebody needs to drive that, and that somebody is me. But what I want the scheme to evolve into is that the authority that issues the certification becomes the ADapT community. Yeah. That it's for the people, by the people. Yeah.
But you were going to have exams.
There is exams, definitely exams.
So the exams is a form of peer review.
Exactly. So at the moment, I'm writing the exams, the exam questions.
If we help you write them, do we get a free pass?
I'm going to talk about involvement in all of this stuff now. I actually quite like Exxon's approach to things. If you're a community member and you contribute and you help with development and stuff like that, you get a credential, but you don't get the badge for the exam unless you've passed the exam. And I think that's a valid principle. I have if I've subscribed to a platform, Credible. It's the second biggest credentialing and badging system based on the Open Credential Standard. So all certificates and digital badges that will be issued will be validatable by a third party, and that would continue ad infinitum even after ADapT is no longer there or is replaced by something else. Okay. But the authority that would say something is good in terms of the certifications need to evolve to a place where it is the community. And that's why it's so important that we actually create a community, and why I would encourage you to become part of the community. I miss my experience of the ITSMF 20 years ago.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. I know exactly what you mean.
And if we can create that again, I think we can do something meaningful. Yeah, a community where people cared about each other, where they openly shared and sometimes disagreed with each other about things.
What contributed?
But always contributed. Yeah. So that's maybe I'm an idealist. Yeah, but that's what I'm striving for with the community. That being said, I think everybody, once you've actually, if you pass an exam, you must become part of the community. And I also understand that some community members may want to be differentiated in some form or another. So a consultant most probably would want a different credential, something like the ISACA stuff. Yeah, that's not only based on passing the exam, but getting CPDs and all kinds of things like that. So probably, there will be a free level and a paid for level. Paid for level is not for me to make money; it's to get money for the community. Yeah,
Keep it running.
Yeah, and to that end, if you have to maintain CPDs and stuff like that, one of the things that I want the community to start becoming involved in very aggressively is in the development of micro and mini credentials. Now, the micro and mini credential thing, okay, and then also to then eventually, once there's a little bit of traction, to go to other organizations and say, okay, we want to work with you. We will endorse your programs if you endorse our programs, and start sharing things. So the planned micro and mini credentials, just for the fun of it, I call them 1100s. Should be about things that enhances and makes ADapT better. Yeah. So either fundamentally learning more about a concept or adding something that can be used with ADapT to do things in a different or a better way. Yeah. And can serve as a catalyst for the next version of ADapT, coming out. I would hope that most of these things would be developed by the community, and that if people do the quick check of whether they've understood or got the credential, the mini credential, that the people who actually created this stuff is compensated for that financially. I don't think it should be huge costs associated to it. It should be, you should be able to do a micro credential for, I don't know, $45 or something like that. Yeah. And I think if we leave half of that in the community and give half of that to the person who contributed, even though it's not a ton, at least it is recognition. Here are some things that I thought about that could be included. A credential about finding purpose and product boards, and a deep dive on jobs to be done specifically, maybe leadership paradigm shifts for CXOs, building prototypes, design thinking fundamentals, dealing with difficult change.
And I see that you've kind of looked at them as part of the different phases, yeah?
Yeah. Some of them may be cross phases. Yeah. All that I did is I went through the slide deck and say, what could we add most probably as I went through the slide deck? These are just ideas, eh? Yeah, it's not cast in concrete or stone or whatever. That's resolve incidents and solve problems. That's the workshop that I've been running for the last year and a half. Yeah. So that exists. It's available now. Yeah.
Cool.
You know how to get to your exam if you haven't received your login credentials. So something that I found out is you will go to this link, but that will take you to the main page and you need to log in. Yeah. Once you've logged in, just click on this link again and it will take you to the exam. Okay. The exam is not timed at the moment. Yeah, because it is in beta phase. Well,
I can take the whole afternoon.
So yeah, but what's the use in doing that? Yeah.
No.
I'm assuming that the people involved in the beta phase are adults and will do the right thing. Okay. What else? Please do give feedback, and part of the feedback, if you can give it using Video Ask and give us permission to use it for social media posts, that would also help a lot. Yeah. Just some advice.
We might want to write a marketing script for this one.
Yeah, well, at this moment in time, this is exactly what I wanted to tell you not to do. I've seen whenever I ask people for video feedback where they actually went and scripted it, I can't use it. It turns out so badly that it's unconvincing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So just go onto Video Ask, listen to the question that I'm asking and answer from your gut. If I can't use it, I can't use it. If you didn't like it, you didn't like it. I'm not asking you for positive feedback. Yeah, this is feedback. But yeah, if there's anything in the feedback that I can use, that would be lovely. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you can join the community pages. We'll find out as a community which place is the best place for us to operate. Yeah, if it's the LinkedIn group or the Facebook group or the Facebook page, or I don't know, they all exist. Yeah, so just go and join them. Start contributing, posting stuff, share your experiences, ask questions. Yeah, become active. That would be lovely. And that is that from me about this stuff for now.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, I ran over by a few minutes.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much for your time and effort and everything you've gone to with this.
I hope all of you will see your way clear to become part of the community. Clearly, if you've got major issues with what I'm telling you, then it's okay. I won't hold it against you. Yeah, but I'm really excited about this.
Well, my plan is the following. Like, obviously, I sat through that. It's a lot of information. I want to go back, look at the slides again, read them properly. That it's not a flashback in a way, but that I understand it properly. My gut feel says it's like we have a lot of baggage with us in a way, which we can float on in a way and actually it brings it nicely together in a way that from my perspective also I can do something with it. Besides that, I want to read it and be part of your community. I have also something like to commercialize it and actually do something more about it. You said it's a train the trainer. So my thoughts should be also on how can I embed it with my normal day-to-day activities and be part of our campus in that way of making sure that we in multiple ways get as part of our offering and the thing. And the one thing that popped in my mind with regards to those badges is like you should give a badge to anyone who delivers a presentation on this topic at a conference or something like that.
Yeah, that's very easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but it makes it fun and easy to achieve.
Yeah. Remember what I said right in the beginning, all of you who's taken part in the development life cycle is going to get a Naughty badge in any case for that. I just want you to write your exams and do post about your exams first. So I'll do that in about 2 weeks' time or something like that.
But I've seen you had already one pass of the exams also, so it's coming past on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
great.
So David has got David Barrow has got the distinction of being 001.
So yeah. So the fact is, it's to be continued.
Yeah, this is not a work completed. Hey? Last thing before you go that I'd like to ask you. We've talked about 3 practitioner courses. Where should I put my effort, development effort? The content is there for all of them, but I need to go and build the physical program. And that means writing a syllabus, doing exams, getting all the examples done, all that stuff. You don't have to answer me now, but do answer me sometime.
I'll think about it, but my gut feel says start at the beginning.
Okay.
Start where you are.
Yeah, that's right.
If people can start with this.
Yeah.
There's a natural progression when you're thinking about developing a workshop or developing a program, and part of it. I think the syllabus is a nice idea. It doesn't have to be anything exact in depth. You already have a frame for which your 9 steps there, and with steps comes 9 modules. It automatically you think about it in a sense, or it is like 3 phases. 3 modules each phase, and that makes it bite-sized. Think about if you were to what's that syllabus look? What is the outcome at the end of that journey? Where do we want this person to be inside their head and inside their ability?
True enough, but you should be able to use any one of the 3 modules on their own also.
Okay, so then that's where I think then it's a good idea as part of the syllabus to really delineate that. Where is that fine line?
So, Simone, my question is, there's 3 of them. There's strategy, there's innovation, there's deliver and scale. Which one should I build for first? I know, Jürgen, you said strategy, yes?
Yeah, but it's back on my nature. I like the strategy. I like the thinking in the front there. So it's directly related to my person. Yeah. And it's most probably also a personal influence there.
Yeah.
Johan, I want to share one thing, and it's like you're cutting it up in three separate deliverables, practitioners courses, which everyone can choose whatever they want. They can also start with innovation instead of with strategy.
Yeah.
I find it sometimes, you're going to have a 3x3 course is 9 days. I see the value sometimes in keeping it together, like we had in the old Agile days, that you had a 5-day course or something. I know it's more difficult to sell, but it keeps it together in a way. But I mean, okay, the ITIL courses the practitioners were slightly different in that way. I
Yeah.
mean,
But here's the interesting thing. I will not prescribe how any one of the trainers or training organizations deliver the content.
no, I understand. I mean, but it's
So
like also that it's just a thought in a way that I'd
yeah,
like to share right now.
what I, for instance, do with the Exxon Scrum stuff, I refuse to do a Scrum Master and a Product Owner course separately.
Yeah, but you know what I
So-
came in when the ITIL modules were then chopped up in so many different exams that actually became
you start
practically
losing
impossible.
context.
So, which means that's when you said about an exam board became too commercial in a way of selling more exams instead of like keeping the learning objective high.
And you know, that's exactly what's busy happening with the practice guides that's been written now for ITIL 4.
Yeah.
Each one of them is going to be a credential on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's going to do it anymore.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah. So I had to be really careful on Monday evening what I say, because Dave C was in the audience, and I really don't want to offend him.
I mean, I know. I mean, I know him also very well and personally in a way. I mean, and he has certain thoughts. But I mean, sometimes, I mean, from a learning objective, I have something like, if you chop it up too much in chunks, you. How can I be good in the end if I don't know the beginning well enough? So I have something like I would.
That's fair.
So I'm very much in the old-fashioned, maybe that's it, the masters managers kind of type way. I'm often pro for fundamentals or an essentials in a way that take you through the whole thing and then build that depth. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to have that issue with the 3 courses because they're fairly short. You're projecting 3 days in a way, and it's not like endless, like 10 courses that you need to complete. 3 is well manageable in that way. But I mean, I just share my thoughts because that pops in my mind.
And I think too, some people might have already, they might not have already done it, but they might have already done a whole lot of work around strategy, because there's a lot of things out there already where they have that. So what they're really looking for is, well, how do I stand on this edge now? How do I look to what's next? How do I, you know? So I think that's why it's a nice thing to break.
I could also imagine that there would be people who's saying, the strategy would be told to me.
Yeah, but I mean, you still need to understand how the deliverable or the inputs to the next phase is how they being produced. You follow what I mean? They have no clue on how strategy is produced. I mean, they don't have to be an expert in that way. So, yeah. So if they at least have a good understanding of how that, or they shouldn't be.
That idea that we talked about from fundamentals to practitioner, where we say, what do we need now for that next phase? How do we bring, what do we need to bring into that next phase? Perhaps that's what we do at the end of each of those areas. So that if someone chooses to do innovation, it has the checklist of all the things from strategy that are the inputs. So in coming to the innovation course, they can actually bring that knowledge from their organization already to work with. Even if they're not working with it in the innovation course per se, but they have it there so that they can answer the questions or make a few notes. Or
I mean, then immediately what I'm thinking about, if somebody doesn't want to do the preceding course, we can actually have a little micro-credential to prepare them for the course.
Yeah, you could. You could.
To do that, yeah. But the main problem with people not wanting to do everything at once is just the time that it takes. They can't take the 9 days out of their thing. There was also the challenge with the ITIL Managers course. 5 days course, cheapest. Then I still have a job to do. And the moment you spread it out, you can still achieve the same objective.
And
Y-
is
here's
the
something-
practitioner style courses, are you writing it more like a course? Like, you know,
Workshop.
the trainer is like, yeah, exactly. I was going to say more like workshop. Yeah.
It's a workshop.
Good fun.
Yeah. It's you know, you can't say you're a practitioner if you can't practice.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Great.
and the same thing is you can't say that you're a master if you haven't mastered it.
Yeah, I've never been fond of the term expert or master unless it's true.
Yeah,
And I'm never going to be an expert. I'm having too much fun practicing.
the moment you dive in the deep end, you realize there's still so much to do.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you say with the reading material that you refer to. The moment you become aware, I need to read that book and that book and that book, and but that I must not forget. Then you know there's so much to bring to that a body of knowledge.
And that can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah. So that's Dunning-Kruger, eh? Jürgen, Dunning-Kruger.
What?
The only person that thinks they're an expert is the person who actually have got no clue.
Yeah, they have no clue. Yeah. The idiot is the expert.
Yeah. Anyway.
Or the
Okay,
claimed
guys.
expert. Watch out for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I had a lot of fun. I hope you had too. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I hope I get the commitment from you all to stay involved.
I will.
I need to go
Awesome.
to another meeting. So thank you, Johan, and we'll stay in touch. Definitely.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you,
guys.
Johan.
Have a
And the
good
other
day.
tendency also look forward to be part of that community with you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Awesome.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yes.
See ya.
Bye.
Simone, before you go,
Yeah. Do you want
Um,
to take the recording off now? Can we move from
yeah, we can
live?
do that in broadcast.